another Wheat Stitch ocean critter, and this time we're going to be making this cute little octopus. This is a really fun and easy one. We're only doing one color on this one, and these tentacles are built right in. So this is a really quick and easy project. Plus we get to use that fun textured wheat stitch that looks really nice. For today on camera, I'm going to be using the My Ami Hirschner's yarn, and this is in their red color, which they just call red. So super simple, easy. Also, I use the Hirschner's worsted 8 yarn for this one, so you can tell the difference between something that has a bit more stitch definition that has a cotton blend to it versus just an acrylic. Really, you can raid your yarn stash. I will say I will probably be showing this one in a really fuzzy yarn from Lion Brand. And that yarn that's super fuzzy, or any yarn that's super fuzzy, I do not recommend for beginners. It takes the project to like an easy project to an advanced project. If the yarn is so textured, it's hard to tell where your stitches are. So for today, we're going to be needing the yarn and then a 4mm crochet hook, some scissors, some safety eyes. However, if you are making this for a little one, please consider stitching on eyes with black yarn because safety eyes are still a problem for very young children. A stitch marker, and then a yarn needle to weave in those ends. This one is super fun. Oh, also we'll need some stuffing, some fiber fill stuffing, or some yarn scraps to put on the inside. So let's go ahead and get started. Now to get started with this octopus, we're going to be making it from top down and in the round. So a stitch marker is definitely essential here. We are going to start by making a magic ring and placing that onto our hook. Chain 1. And now we are going to single crochet 12 stitches into the magic ring for round 1. And now we're going to pull our ring closed, but not all the way closed. It'll make it easier if you don't tighten it all the way down just yet. And we're going to join to the very first stitch of the round with a slip stitch. I like to tighten those down, and then we're going to turn our work. Chain 1, which I will say chain 1's a lot of times when doing this is optional. If you use the stitch marker, you don't really need to do the chain 1. But we're going to chain 1. And then we're going to not work into our join. This stitch is our join. We're going to work into the first stitch of the round and in the back loop only. So normally we would enter through both loops, but since we're going to be working the back loop, we're going to skip that front loop and go right into that back loop. And we are going to work 2 single crochet stitches. Grab your stitch marker and mark the very first stitch of the round to keep track. And then we're going to continue to work 2 single crochet stitches in the back loop only of every single stitch around. This will increase our stitch count from 12 stitches to 24 stitches at the end of round 2. Now at the end of round 2, we're going to join to the very first stitch of the round with a slip stitch and then turn our work and chain 1. And here's where we're going to be starting what is the wheat stitch portion where we are using those puff stitches. We're going to skip the very first stitch in this round and we're going to single crochet into the next. Then we're going to work back into that skip stitch. We'll yarn on over and enter that stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Pulling the loops as tall as your very first loop on your hook. Yarn over and insert that stitch again. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Now we have 5 loops on our hook. We will yarn over and pull through 4 and then yarn over and pull through the last 2. And that's a modified puff stitch. And that's what we're going to be using all the way around. So go ahead and mark that very first stitch. We've made 2 stitches so far. You'll want to mark that first stitch. And then we're going to be repeating that segment around. So we're going to skip the next stitch and single crochet into the next. And then working back into that skip stitch, we will work that modified puff stitch. And that's what we're going to do all the way around. And if you've never worked the wheat stitch before, I have a full tutorial on my blog that's worked in rows. I highly recommend practicing with it before working with it in rounds on Amigurumi, and I have plenty of patterns to do so. So I'm going to keep repeating this all the way around. We are not increasing. We are sticking with 24 stitches at the end of round 3. Now at the end of round 3, we're going to join to the very first stitch of this round with a slip stitch. And then we're going to turn our work, chain 1, and repeat round 3. So round 4 is just a repeat of round 3. We're going to skip the first stitch of the round and single crochet into the next. And then working back into that skip stitch, we will work a puff stitch. and be sure to mark the very first stitch of your round. And that's what we're going to be working all the way around. And when you are working into the puff stitches from the previous round, the single crochets will be worked into the single crochet stitches from the previous round, and the puff stitches will work into the puff stitches of the previous round. So those do match up. That might help to make sure you're keeping on the right track. I'm going to complete round 4 and then come back for round 5. Now after round 4, we're going to move our stitch marker and join. And then we will turn our work and chain 1. And for round 5, we will be working single crochet stitches again, and we're going to be working in the back loops only for this entire round. So working in the back loop only, the very first stitch, we will single crochet 2, and we're doing an increase there. Be sure to mark the first stitch of the round. And then we're going to single crochet into the next stitch. Then we'll do 2 single crochet stitches into the next, and single crochet into the next. And we're going to repeat that all the way around. So we're doing an increase, 2 single crochets, and then a single crochet into the next, working in those back loops only all the way around. At the end of round 5, we will have a total of 36 single crochet stitches. Now for round 6, we are also going to be increasing and working in the back loops only for these single crochet stitches. So we're going to work 2 single crochets into the very first stitch, and of course grab your stitch marker and mark the first stitch of the round. And then we're going to single crochet in the back loop only for each of the next 2 stitches. So that's going to be a repeat around. We'll do 2 single crochets into the next, which increases, and then we'll single crochet into each of the next 2, working everything for this round in the back loop only. Now at the end of round 6, we will have a total of 48 stitches. Now at the end of round 6, we are going to be joining to the first stitch of the round, and then we will be doing rounds 7 and 8. And here's the cool thing about rounds 7 and 8, they are a repeat of round 3 through 4. So we're just repeating those puff stitch repeats where we skip the first stitch, single crochet into the next, and then go back and work a modified puff stitch into that skipped stitch and repeat that all the way around. So rounds 7 through 8 are a repeat of rounds 3 through 4. And now after doing rounds 7 through 8 with that puff stitch, we're going to turn, chain 1, and get ready to do round 9. Now for round 9, we are going to be doing some decreasing. We're going to start by chaining 1, and then we're going to do a back loop only single crochet together for the first 2 stitches. To do this and have it be an invisible decrease, we're going to enter through the back loop only of the first stitch, rotate our hook around and go through the back loop only of the second stitch. Then we will yarn over and pull through those loops, and then yarn over and pull through 2 to complete the invisible decrease. And then you can go ahead and throw a stitch marker into that very first stitch. Then working in the back loops only, we will single crochet into the next 6. And that is going to be our repeat around. So once again, we're going to do a single crochet 2 together as an invisible decrease, and then single crochet in the back loop only for 6. So this round once again is worked all in back loop only stitches. Now for round 10, the very next round, we're simply going to chain 1 and then back loop only single crochet into each stitch around. So at the end of round 9, we are decreasing to 42 stitches. And then for round 10, we're simply going to single crochet in the back loop only for 42 stitches as well. Now for rounds 11 through 12, so we just finished round 10 single crocheting around in the back loop only. We're going to join and turn our work. And then for rounds 11 through 12, we are going to be doing a repeat of rounds 3 and 4 again. So just another 2 rows of that wheat stitch for rounds 11 through 12, and then come on back for round 13. Now for rounds 13 and 14, which are going to be single crocheting in the back loop only, but we're going to be decreasing on each of these rounds for those stitch counts. So we're going to start by decreasing on round 13. We will start by working that single crochet 2 together with the invisible decrease, and then we are going to single crochet into the next 5 stitches, and you can mark the first of your round if you need to. And that's going to be our repeat around. So once again, that is to do a single crochet 2 together, and then single crochet into each of the next 5 stitches. After repeating that around for round 13, we will have a total of 36 stitches at the end of the round. Now at the end of round 13, we're going to join and turn our work. And you can chain 1. And then for round 14, we're also going to decrease again. We're working in the back loops only for this round. So we're doing the single crochet in the back loop only, but we are going to be decreasing. So for round 14, we're going to do a single crochet 2 together, working only in the back loop for that invisible decrease. And then we are going to single crochet into the next 7 stitches. And that's going to be our repeat around for round 14. And at the end of the round, we will have a total of 32 stitches. Now at the end of round 14, we're ready to do rounds 15 and 16, and those are going to be a repeat of rounds 3 through 4. So those are those puff stitches. The only difference this time is when you get to the end of round 16, we are not going to join. So work rounds 15 and 16, but at the end of 16, come back before joining. Now we are not going to join at the end of round 16. We're just going to pause for a second here, and we are going to place the safety eyes onto the front of this octopus. I like to do it between rounds 11 and 12 on the front, and approximately 4 to 5 stitches apart. But you can play around with this, and you can place these however you would like for whatever spacing and look of the eyes that you prefer. Then once you have figured out what the spacing you want for those are, you can go ahead and snap on the back of these. I did find a handy tool that can help if you have a hard time applying pressure to these. You can put this side against the outside eye and then put these other plastic pieces in there and clamp them down. Now once you have your eyes attached, we're going to go back to crocheting the base of this. Now we are ready to start working the round with the tentacles. We have not joined yet at the end of round 16, and we will not be turning. So we're going to go to the very first stitch of this round. Now instead of joining, we are going to be working in the front loops only, going right into working this continuously. We are going to slip stitch in the front loop only, leaving the back loops unworked. We're going to come back and work those back loops later on, but for this round, everything will be in the front loop only, and we are going to slip stitch the first 4 stitches of this round in the front loop only. Now definitely be sure to mark the first of the round on this one, because when you're working continuous, it is very easy to miss where we started this round. Now once you have slip stitched the first 4 stitches in the front loop only, now we are going to chain 12. This is for our first tentacle. Now after chaining 12, we are going to work in the second chain from the hook, single crocheting 1. So single crochet in the second chain from the hook. Next, we're going to work 2 half double crochet stitches into the next chain. Now notice I'm working in the bottom humps. I think it looks better if you work into the bottom humps of your chain. That way the top side and the bottom side have that nice V look. Now we will double crochet into the next. And then we're going to start a repeat for the rest of the chains. And this is what the repeat is going to be working down the rest of these chains. We're going to do 2 double crochet stitches into the next chain. And then double crochet 1 into the next. And that's going to be our repeat all the way down. Now everything we've done is going to be our repeat around. So we're going to walk through that again. So we just finished working back down those chains, and now we're back down to the body of this, and we want to start by slip stitching into the very next stitch in the front loop only and into each of the next 3. So we're slip stitching 4 stitches along the edge of the body, working in the front loops only. And then once again, we are going to chain 12 Now everything we've done is going to be our repeat around. So we're going to walk through that again. So we just finished working back down those chains, and now we're back down to the body of this. And we want to start by slip stitching into the very next stitch in the front loop only and into each of the next 3. So we're slip stitching 4 stitches along the edge of the body, working in the front loops only. And then once again, we are going to chain 12. And then we're going to be working into the bottom humps of that chain. Starting in the second chain from the hook, we will do a single crochet. And then 2 half double crochet stitches into the next chain. And then double crochet into the next. And then for the remainder of the chains, we will alternate between doing 2 double crochet stitches into the next chain, and then double crocheting 1 into the next. And that will be the repeat along the chain. And then we're simply going to do 4 slip stitches in the front loop only along the edge and repeat that all the way around. So we're just doing those 4 slip stitches and then a tentacle, 4 slip stitches and then the tentacle, and that will go all the way around, and these will end up curling up nicely and shaping really well. So I'm going to finish that all the way around. Now when you get back around to the beginning where your stitch marker is, do not forget to do the very last tentacle. So we will end on doing a tentacle here before we get to the end of the round. Now that we've worked all the way around, we are actually going to go back to the kind of towards the inside. So not our slip stitch we just did, but the back loop that was unworked on the round below behind it. And we are going to join, we're just going to be working in the round. And so we are going to single crochet into each back loop all the way around. So we're going to be working in those back loops. I'm going to mark that very first stitch. We're just working continuously here. And we're going to be working in the back loops from that previous round. So we just did the front loops with the tentacles, and now we're going to work that same round again, working those back loops only that are sitting there unworked, and we're just going to single crochet into each of those around, which means we will have 32 stitches at the end of this round of the base. And then we're going to keep decreasing. So I'm going to single crochet in the back loop only from that tentacle round until we have 32 stitches. Now that we have 32 stitches around, for round 2 of this base, we are going to be doing some decreasing. And we're going to be working, so you've got this tentacle here. This is our first stitch. We're going to be going right back into that first stitch that we have marked for this round. We're going to be working continuously and not joining. So let me move my stitch marker, and then we're going to do that very first stitch of the round. We're going to do a single crochet 2 together. And when you do an invisible single crochet, going through the front loops only is how you're going to do it normally. I know we were working in the back loop before sometimes on some rounds because that's the way that the pattern worked. But for this, we'll be going through the front loops to do that invisible decrease. And then we are going to simply single crochet into the next 2 stitches. Mark the very first stitch of this round. And then our repeat around is going to be to do a single crochet 2 together. And then single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And that's the repeat all the way around. And at the end of round 2, we will have a total of 24 stitches after doing those decreases. Now, before moving on to round 3, we are going to want to pause for a second and begin stuffing because it will get harder for us to stuff the smaller this hole gets. Now, what I will say about stuffing amigurumi is a common mistake is to overstuff. You don't want to overstuff this little guy. You don't want it so that your stitches look bulging out or that you're creating space between the stitches. You want him firm enough that he has shape, but still squishy, so he's absolutely adorable. I'm going to stuff a little bit and then I'm going to save stuffing any more until after I have done a little bit more decreasing, and that will happen after this next round. So we are going to be decreasing again for round 3. We're going to start by single crocheting 2 together. I like using that invisible decrease, and then single crochet into the next. And we're going to go ahead and mark the very first stitch of this round. Now at the end of round 3, doing that repeat of single crochet 2 together and then single crochet 1 into the next stitch, we will have a total of 16 stitches at the end of round 3. Now before working this last round, finish doing any stuffing as you want. I like how this bottom curls in. That's intentional. I want it to do that. That way when it's sitting down, it'll sit quite flat and it won't bulge out. You don't want to stuff this to where this is bulging out. You want it firm, but you don't want it too tight. Now for the very last round, I'm going to move my stitch marker here. And we are going to be doing a single crochet 2 together all the way around, which means we'll be decreasing from 16 stitches to 8. So simply single crochet 2 together all the way around. And I'm just going to use that invisible decrease all the way around, decreasing it to 8 stitches. Now that we have decreased, we can go ahead and fasten off and grab your yarn needle. We're going to finish closing this opening and weaving in the end. So to close this final opening, we are going to loop through the front loop only of each of the remaining stitches around. Now once you have gone through all those stitches, we can simply pull it closed, and then we're just going to weave in our end. Now you might notice some of the tentacles look a little bit misshaped. That just means they just need a little bit of twisting. You're just going to kind of pop them into place. You can have them curled out like so, or you can roll them into themselves so they look like a spiral and that they curl up and then they sit quite nicely. And that is our cute little octopus. He is part of a set of these Amigurumi Wheat Stitch characters that are ocean themed. This is a really fun one. I love the way he turned out with that Wheat Stitch texture. Be sure to hit subscribe on this YouTube video to come back for more videos soon, and also like anything on social media. If you've done this from my blog, please save it, share it. It's really helpful to a small business, and I hope you come back for another fun project soon.